It's Katie Rose, straight up with a twist. What's up, humans? This is Katie Rose, your friendly neighborhood realtor and podcaster. So what is going on in the world? What is actually happening in this world? Every day, there's just something for the world to yell about. And now we hear it and see it more often because of social media and the outlets that we have. It's a beautiful day in Florida today, but it's starting to get hot, peoples. It's starting to get hot. I kind of forgot. If you're a Floridian and you went through the pandemic, we have been kind of programmed to get used to air conditioning. We were trapped in our houses for 2 years, and I actually was like stifled the other day. I went outside and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot the oven that Florida was. 2 seconds of letting your car sit outside, you get inside of this oven. I'm like, oh my God, I can't breathe. And I always wondered what it's like to be able to wear a pair of clothing more than one day, because I know people up north do that. I know that it's nice and chilly out, or if you've got that nice fall weather and there's a breeze and you're like, I didn't sweat in this outfit. That doesn't happen in Florida. We go through so many loads of laundry. I mean, it's never ending. It's not like we have a laundry day. It's like every day is laundry day. And if you're wearing your disgusting clothing that you sweat in another day, we have another hygiene discussion to have. But our clothes will get mildewed and gross, and it's just pertinent that you wash your clothing often. But stuff's going down in Florida, guys. Ron DeSantis, not to mention when he speaks, I'm like, it's like nails on a chalkboard for me. He's like this whiny kid. And every time he talks, I just want to put a dunce cap on him and put him in the corner. And I'm like, shut up. Like, he's so whiny and annoying. And it's like he is another Trump-like figure. He feels like if I just talk the loudest, speak the loudest, and speak over people, and that he'll get his way, I mean, he doesn't see himself. And he just has this empty-headed way of speaking. He's obtuse in thinking that anyone is cheering him on, and that it's like he pats his own back. He's like, oh, hey, did you see what I just said? See what I just said, guys? Yeah, did you hear that? That was awesome, right? Like Trump kind of did the same thing. It's like he needed a cookie every time he said something and had to nod his head and look around the room, for accolades and acknowledgement. Like that was right, guys? Right? We should put the bleach inside the anyone? Is that in the skin? Is that what we're supposed to do? No? Okay. Well, not going to get too much into politics today, but there is stuff going down in Florida. I just don't even know how this got so big. It is not new information that Walt Disney World supports the gays. This is not a new stance. They didn't even need to come out with a statement. And I'm a proponent of the media, but sometimes I think, maybe them trying to get these statements just made it worse. And, Universal is getting out scot-free because they're just keeping their mouths shut, Either way, it is not new that Disney supports the LGBTQ gay community. And they have gay days, for goodness sake. And all of a sudden, the right party is like, oh, I'm not going to go to Disney anymore. Okay, well, fine. Don't go. Because if they didn't scare you away before by holding hands in public and you had to hide your little kid's eyes from them, then how is this all of a sudden changing that? I mean, this is really affecting the teachers. It's not going to hurt Disney. They're going to be just fine. I'm concerned because these teachers are walking on eggshells and they're afraid they're going to misspeak and they're going to lose their livelihoods. And I think we're not focusing on moving forward, and this is a step backwards. I mean, you institutionalize these bills, and it's structural transphobia and homophobia, and It's not a supportive environment at all. I think it's an abuse of power, and I think that things need to be handled on a case by case basis. We have HR in the workplace, we have counselors in schools. Investigate it and take care of it. Don't make this generalized bill as if all teachers are holding classroom instruction about sexual orientation. And sure, I'm sure there was one bad egg. Well, whoever the bad egg is, whatever happened in this case that maybe we all could agree on that kind of pushed this, could be dealt with in a private matter. This doesn't need to be a public decision. I mean, why is it okay that someone can run around being like, oh, look at the little heartbreaker? You know, people talk to 2, 3, 4, 5 year olds talking about, oh, do you have a girlfriend? Oh, are you dating someone in the classroom? Oh, look at this little heartbreaker over here. Oh, she's so cute and sassy. And, we label people and we do these things that are kind of sexualized even for the younger kids, and you're already putting it in their head that they need to have a girlfriend or they need to have a boyfriend or whatever. How's that any different than someone being like, oh, I have 2 dads? Oh yeah, my dad's gay. Or, oh, do you know anyone who's gay? Okay, well, just because I think teachers are smart enough to and should be adult enough to handle a conversation with a 3-year-old if it were to come to surface. I highly doubt there's a teacher who's like, Bobby talked about his gay dad. So let's have a lesson about it, everyone. Gather round to the circle, and let's open up a book about gays. Like, that's not happening. They're not putting it into the curriculum. It's called using your best judgment. And if we can't trust people on their best judgment in their positions that they're in these adult, positions, these where they have responsibilities, then we need to just hire all robots to cover us in everywhere that we go, where there's public, opinions and choices. I'm over it. I'm over us dehumanizing people, because that's what we're doing, is we're dehumanizing people. Now we've got Orange County, who's probably going to have to sue back, and we're dealing with all of these threats. And, everyone just keeps making, oh, yeah, well, they should pay. Disney should pay. They're a rich corporation, blah, blah. I'm like, don't hate the player, hate the game. Disney made a deal fair and square years ago. Good for them. Like people are predicting, if they push forward with it, Disney's still going to pay. They're still going to pay their bills. They're still going to do all of these things. And in some ways, they might actually get a tax cut from this situation. But it's the people around the areas. They're going to have property taxes risen, which, of course, there's usually a cap. I think it's a 3% cap that Florida gets on raising property taxes. But I mean, our insurances on home properties are going up as well. And it's just really tough times. And just another clarification about the world. It's very frustrating that people just keep, it's like we focus on like just a few things as voters, and we need to do better as voters and understanding what it is that we're voting for. It's not just abortion. It's not just our taxes. It's not just gay marriage. And the president doesn't set the gas prices, people. We are here because of what happened with the pandemic. It's simple economics. The Federal Reserve is what helps us. It's what keeps our economy running, because we're borrowing and they run off securities, okay? And the Federal Reserve is basically making sure there is a balance. They are balancing out the economy. They keep an eye on it. They don't want another 2008. Obviously, we've learned from our, mistakes, but now we've got a pretty well-oiled machine. And what happened was people were not spending money. Let me ask you a question. If you ran a business and it was a product like toilet paper, would you continue to make a whole bunch of toilet paper if nobody was buying it? Would you just keep making it? No, you wouldn't do that. It's supply and demand. So these businesses, like the oil companies, stopped making as many barrels. And all we're doing is catching up. We got back into the economy. There was more demand, and so we needed more supply. And because we didn't have enough supply, because we've been on a hiatus, with the world, the cost of it went up. And yeah, okay, so we had our issues with Russia. That's only like 10% of our barrels. And we had other places that we were distributing from. But because of the backlog and the shipping issues, it's taking some time. So I think if people of the world could just have some patience and maybe not just go, oh my God, I'm free. Let me go spend all my money. I mean, everyone's getting back to work, of course. We need to drive to our jobs and do all these things. It's great. It's boosting our economy. But that doesn't mean point the finger at Biden and go, it's your fault. It's the pandemic's fault. It's not Biden's fault. He didn't create the virus. He didn't bring it over. And guess what, guys? The person who was in charge at the time was Trump when the virus went down. And he kind of held off. He actually kept saying, it's going to go away. It's not going to be around for long. It's just going to disappear. Okay, so if you really want someone to blame for how this snowballed, you can go back. I'm so exhausted by people not like looking at the past and how you got somewhere. Someone doesn't just walk into a job. What if you walked into a job and on the first day and someone went, hey, this is Katie. Welcome. This is all your fault. And you just handed her a stack of papers and said, this is your problem. This is everything you did, all of this. Everything that I've done for the past 10 years that I've worked for this company, that's all your fault. I'm just going to, here you go. Now you got to do this workload and it's all your fault. They did it with Obama, everything that Bush went through and him pulling us out and trying to get us back on track. I also don't understand how people don't see the goodness. Like, that's something that's more worrisome to me, is how people can't see goodness in a person. It's very clear to me. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's a superpower that I have. But it's very strange to me how easily manipulated somebody can be by someone's negativity and loudness. And that's all it is. It's tactus. I'm really loud. I'm over here. Listen to me, which is kind of what DeSantis and Trump do, right? I'm over here. I'm saying something. It must be true. Look over here. And meanwhile, you've got the humble, good people working behind the scenes, and they're somehow getting blamed as villains. And they're the good ones. And it's very obvious to me. You got like somebody with a mask smiling and waving, and then someone who's like, I hate masks and I hate life, and, and makes fun of people. It's very clear to me who the bullies are and who the kind people are. I mean, the Obama family, God, what stand-up, nice people. Okay? They're not perfect. It's like a football game. It's like these, macho guys watching football from their couch drinking beer and being like, oh, why'd you make that move? Like, as if you could do better. Like, there's a lot at stake here. Like, it's not as easy. Like, hindsight is always 20/20, people. Anyone can watch a play while there's a football game going on and be like, oh, he should have done this. Okay, well, shoulda, woulda, coulda. We can all look at things in hindsight and say, oh, well, I would have done it like this, or I could have done it. Well, if you want to do it, then go run for president. I think there just needs to be a bit more grace given, and then also research. And not even hard research. I'm not saying you have to become an economist. I'm not saying that you need to become a pundit or, get into broadcasting and I'm not saying all of that. I'm saying do some basic research into something before just listening to different news and taking someone's clearly opinionated viewpoint of something. To me, it's very clear when someone's just delivering a fact and when someone's around a table just bouncing off opinions back and forth. I know if our nation can get through the Spanish flu and the Great Depression, we will always get our way out of it. And we got to just be smart. We got to be smart. We got to have that good head on our shoulders, and we got to use it. We got to use our powers for good, not for evil. But trying to steer away from the political things. Homes are becoming more expensive, and their inflation is crazy right now. And homes are becoming like antiques. Like, my house was built in 1982, and I know that my house isn't really worth $350,000, but right now it is, right? But if I were to sell my house, interest rates are up, and all the other houses are $500,000. I mean, what world are we living in that it is a luxury to have a roof over your head? That you have to be rich to have a roof? It's insanity. I never thought that the average cost of a home right now is $500,000. What is going on? That doesn't match up. That doesn't match up with my income, with our wages. I mean, people are scooping up houses left and right because my house is a rare find. I mean, it's not even actually worth what the materials are. Granted, there's another thing, materials. So that's another thing that's been inflating our property insurances, is the cost of materials to fix your house if something were to happen to it. Well, one thing that's good news, guys, is that the cost of lumber is finally starting to go down a bit, right? It's just the supply and demand, and we have to be patient when our country and our world has endured what we have just endured. But it used to be that you needed one income to afford a home. One family could have a roof over their head and one job, and someone could stay at home and watch the kids, and you could afford dinner, and that was on the table. I mean, obviously, there's been poverty, and I mean, I grew up paycheck to paycheck, and I couldn't believe that I was even middle class, lower middle class. It doesn't need to be, up and up and up, and our wages need to go higher and higher. We just need balance. It just needs to be relative. I don't care if we go back to having 1 cent and we start using our pennies again and it's, 5 cents a gallon, as long as it's relative. Like, I honestly don't see the point, and I feel the more that we go up and up and up and up, we are kind of, right now, the value of our dollar is low. And I understand. I'm actually starting to look into the Bitcoin thing because money will become obsolete the way that we just keep on inflating and going up and up and up. So I feel that there needs to be a conversation about making things relative again. It's like we need a clean slate because the balance is terribly off. And people are being pushed out of the places they grew up in. Having a town that you grew up in is going to become a foreign affair. I mean, we are pushing people out, especially in metropolitan cities like Orlando, Los Angeles, Atlanta. Tourism in many areas is just pushing people out, and the rich investors are popping in and taking all the properties just to make a buck on travelers. People would argue the capitalism of it all and say that that's just smart business, right? Sure. But what happens when the economy tanks and no one can travel? Or we have another pandemic? Those properties just sit because they're not homestead. Nobody's living in them. So you try to sell it back to the community, but at the cost of the economy? I mean, we can't just continue this back and forth. And this is why Democrats fight. This is why we want balance. We don't want socialism. I swear, if I hear one more right-wing person say that that's what we want, because that's what they manipulated you to believe, is that Democrats want socialism. That's not what we want. And maybe there are some, okay? There are always really super far left. But I could say that I'm pretty far left and I don't want socialism. We want our freedoms, and there just needs to be balance. We want some good old Robin Hoods. Sure. There's no reason to continue to make the rich richer and the poor poorer. Gentrification, lack of opportunities. Just make it make sense. We cannot thrive in our economy if the economy doesn't make enough of a living wage to contribute to the economy. So no, Republicans, it's not because we're not working hard enough. It's because the hard work isn't being paid enough. I have seen the eye rolls and scoffs and the pompous comments from those in a position of wealth and power, and they have no respect for other fields of work. It's like, okay, so what if the entire world was like, you know what? You're right. Let's all be doctors. Who's going to pick up your trash? Who's going to take you out to a nice date night? You're definitely not going to have going entertainment. That'll be the first thing to go, as we have learned that entertainment will be the first to go. People scoff, oh, is that a real job? Yeah, that's a real job. People actually tend to respect it. How many times in my life I've said I'm a dancer and people are like, oh, a dancer? I'm like, because that is more recognizable to be a stripper and be paid to be a stripper as a form of income, as a job, as a working girl, than it is to be an actual trained dancer. Like, I'm laughing, but it's true. Like, the disrespect that people get. I'm like, they put in so many hours and so much work and so much effort, just the same way a doctor learns their skills. It is comparable, honestly. It's memorization and it's skill set and it's repetition and it's long hours. I mean, it can be similar. It can be compared. And I've seen the lack of respect. And we can't all do the same job. We can't, well, they just didn't try hard enough. They didn't pick the right field of work. Well, then you're not going to get the things. You're not going to get the IKEA couch. You're not going to have upholsters. You're not going to get your suit pressed. People need to be born into this world with different dreams. That is what makes the world go round. Truth and wealth cannot be defined by more than money. I would rather raise my kid to be kind than to be rich. I really do. I would be more proud of my child's goodness than their prosperity. But wealthy people, they make these business decisions and they think, oh, I'll just donate to a charity. And then it's like I'm giving back, right? It doesn't work that way. Charities have a lot of issues. I mean, I can say there's no charity that will give to my infertility. I mean, I haven't found any that don't ask me for money, which I'm like, that's just a raffle. They're like, if you fill out this form for $100, you might get chosen. I'm like, so if thousands of other women donate $100, oh, and then it's only this amount of money, that's just a raffle. Okay. I have noticed that the Jewish community takes care of one another. They have free and clear charities that just give the money to people in need. And there are charities that do this, but there's also, it's a business and they're making money. There's never really, it's very rare to find true charities, even charities that give to the poor in other countries. What we really need to do is teach people how to build their wealth. It's more about education and infrastructure. You can't just throw money at things and go, oh, I did it, and that makes it better. It's really the infrastructure that needs help. And I really feel that's why we still have the poor countries that we do. If there is a charity giving away, new build homes in Orlando, I'm unaware of it. You should be able to go get a regular job and still be able to pay your bills. But in the world that we live in, the two biggest purchases of your life are a home and a car. People would like to be able to save to get those things, right? But if every year they save and save, and every year the economy grows and grows without a raise, which happens, so many people even before the pandemic, missed raises in their wages. How can they ever catch up? Right? We're just playing catch up our whole lives, and people would love to acquire those things, but we just keep on rising and rising and rising. Plus today, like, we are required to have things like iPads, laptops for schools, cell phones, internet. The library was free, right? I mean, when was the last time you went to a library? What's the Dewey Decimal System? I'll just use my Kindle. No, not Kendall, Kindle. Projects took so much time and effort when I was in school. There's no internet card for research, right? You have to pay for these resources now. So it should be a part of our living wage. I know many people have pleaded in courts, tried to break down costs of living, including childcare, even things like planned obsolescence affect us. And there just doesn't seem to be a way to change this, a jurisdiction that can fix it. And if you don't know what planned obsolescence is, it's something that our baby boomers never had to deal with. It's why you always replace your light bulbs. Well, we know a light bulb could be made to burn bright forever, right? They still have the one burning, and they build things to break so that we continue to buy them, which in turn makes our economy thrive, but to whose benefit? It's not the man. It's not your average citizen. I mean, how many washers and dryers have you gone through? How many people have had to buy something off Craigslist because they can't afford a new one anymore because they've already gone through 2 new ones and they break anyways with some crappy limited warranty, right? Parts that are too expensive. So you may as well get a new one. And to have someone come out and look at it, just to look at it, it's $50. So things are not built to last. Things are built to break. That's just what some brilliant companies figured out long ago. I got it. I get it. I totally get it. But it's ruining our ability to keep up. That's what it's doing. I mean, how glorious would it be if I could be like, I bought this one refrigerator and then like that was it, right? I mean, my grandmother still has her refrigerator in her basement from the 1930s and it still works like gangbusters. Like, the proof is in the pudding. You can see it. You can see it in the things that are built. I mean, how many times have you moved? And granted, yes, it makes moving easier to like have it torn apart and then you can build it in the room or you don't have to carry it. It's not as heavy. But man, you barely touch a wall. You've nicked the side of it. And that brand new piece of furniture you bought is wooden because it's made of particle board, right? It's not going to last, right? We need the Amish to build our furniture. But saving up for that TV, saving up for a new computer, a new washer, a new dishwasher, a new oven, it doesn't have the same satisfaction anymore. And that's also kind of ruining our egos, right? It's kind of messing with our mental health. It's showing us that it doesn't matter how much you save. We used to have this pride. Look what I bought. I bought a new lawnmower, wife, and you're so proud of this lawnmower. And you felt like a man, right? You had this pride. And now that's being stripped from us in these small little increments over time. And we don't realize that it's actually hurting our egos because in another 5 to 10 years, you're going to have to replace it. And right now, if you compare the last century, so I kind of researched this. If you were to compare, the cost of a loaf of bread and all of those things, where we are right now, if you track it into inflation, the minimum wage, we should all be making $21 an hour. And here we are bragging that some places have reached $15. And that's still not even our minimum wage. And even if, I still believe, even if everyone got paid $21 an hour, we'd still be living paycheck to paycheck. And also, all of the people that just came over from California have all this money to spend, and they can invest it in real estate, right? So these are also the people pushing the people who've lived here forever out because Disney was like, hey, let's, fire everybody and move them to Orlando, right? So now we've got all these California people coming over here and not only taking our jobs, but taking our homes. It's tough. And as far as the student loans forgiveness or pause goes, the whole reason for that, I just don't agree with it. And I think economists are rich people or something who underestimate how poor America really is. First, it was people are dumb and spending their stimulus checks and things they don't need, right? I mean, God forbid a family was like, oh my God, I have a little extra money. Let me put some steak on the table because normally I can't afford steak. I will never forget when my dad made steak. I'm like, oh, Dad must have got some money this week. Or we're doing okay. There's steak on the table, right? It's certain things that you notice in your life and you can appreciate them. And I feel like everybody is struggling so hard. It's like we can't appreciate these things anymore, right? But as far as the way that people are thinking about it, it's like, oh, okay, so we put a pause on it because, we needed to help. And all of the money that they're not spending on interest, right, for these student loans, they're going to put back into the economy is the idea, right? So all that interest that they saved on student loans, that money is going to go back into the economy. What are you talking about? People aren't paying their student loans anyways. People are going to die with their student loans. It is so hard to pay those back. I mean, I don't have them. My family, there's never going to be a day, like unless I got like a full ride scholarship, which I didn't, but and there wouldn't be enough small, bright futures, any scholarships that are going to get me, a full education. So I knew it was not going to be an option. And yes, the student loans, I knew the way that I was raised. I'm like, I'm never going to be able to pay these back. I mean, I've worked in real estate and I've talked to so many people. I worked over in timeshare, and I've spoken to people in their 60s, 70s, 80s that are like, oh, we can't afford to get this or go on family vacations because of our student loans. And I'm like, die with your student loans. I'm like, because they're not going to cross over to a family member. Just die with them. I'm like, just pin it to the man, because it's absurd how expensive school is. It's like they make you feel like public school is free. It's not free. You just spent 12 years waiting to put all the 12 years of all of that money into college. You're paying it all back anyways, you know? And you're paying for school because it's coming. If you have a home, you're paying for it through your property taxes. Nothing is free. We got to really remember that phrase. Whoever started that one, that's the correct answer. If it's too good to be true, it probably is, and nothing is free. Yeah, your time is not free. Time is money, and that is also true. These are all wonderful phrases. Just don't forget those phrases, people. They all are true. I just think it's funny that the way that people think about it, like, oh yeah, well, no, yeah, then all that money they saved on interest, they're just gonna go spend it back into the economy, and then everything will be great again. I'm like, no, you're not understanding that people weren't paying their student loans anyways, and times are tough, and life is hard. um, and it's not extra money. You know, there's no extra money. You know, people who have these bills and these loans, they're trying. They you know, everyone keeps thinking like, oh, it's helping. It's barely helping, like barely. They're not just running around spending all their money into the economy right now. They're running out trying to get better jobs, trying to find more work. You know, yes, they're getting back to their lives, but you know, it's really not about that. People are quickly realizing that still going out to eat or have a drink. I mean, when I go out now, I mean, I understand the whole cocktail fad. I am a mixologist myself. I love making cocktails, but now I've learned how to make them. So it's very hard for me to justify going out, my dinner being $18, and my cocktail is $21. How on God's green earth are you charging me that much for 2 ounces of liquor when the whole bottle costs $20? It's extortion. I don't understand how anyone's actually getting away with it. I guess because people are paying for it. But like, people are paying for it now. They're going to pay for it in their wallets later. When something goes south and they wish they didn't go out and spend that money on that cocktail, it's absurd. I mean, literally your food is cheaper than buying alcohol right now. So I'm just buying wine and bringing it home and making my cocktails at home. I just can't justify it anymore. I mean, every once in a while, if I see a cocktail that I've never had before, because I'm pretty good. I know how to make lots of the cocktails, people. But if I see something, a liqueur I've never had, or, you know, just something different, I'm like, all right, I'll try it. But then that's all I can have for the whole night. So I'm just drunk off this one cocktail. I'm not even drunk. That's not even fair. I didn't even get buzzed enough because it's only 2 ounces. Come on, people. Even good glasses of wine. I'm like, if I see a glass of wine and a glass of wine is over $10, I'm like, really? You know, and then my husband can get a beer for like even $4 for a beer. What happened? What happened to dollar PBRs, right? So it's a struggle. And I think we all need to get back to those good times, like that 70s feeling of, you know, fighting for love. Like, where are the Michael Jacksons, right? You know, it doesn't matter if you're black or white. And, you know, we really need to get back into that love and heal the world, make it a better place. I really feel, and I do feel like artists, especially artists, are trying. And that's the thing is, like, think about how many people, and I'm just going to come back to this real quick, you know, they make fun of the entertainment industry, and people didn't realize that this entire last year that everyone's gone back to work, how hard entertainers are still fighting for their jobs. They are few and far between. People are all fighting for the same jobs. And we need entertainment in this world. You can say you don't, but you do. There's a song that reminds you of the good old days. You've got a wedding song. You remember the first time you kissed your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, and there was this song playing and it brings you back. It's nostalgic. And music is for the heart and for the soul. And all of this nonsense and hatred is not good for the soul. And it's not about who's right. It's not about the right being the most right and the left being the most left. It is about balance. And we have the right and the left because it was supposed to create balance. Everything in the world is about balance, if you think about it. I mean, your diets. How many times, oh, do this diet, do that, do this. You know what it really comes down to? Balance, diet, and exercise. You don't need to kill yourself in the gym. Oh, I've learned that. You definitely don't need to kill yourself. Maybe at first, maybe for the first couple of weeks. Cool, get yourself going. You don't need to kill yourself. You don't need to be, a huge bodybuilder, whatever. You don't need to run 10 miles a day. You don't need to kill yourself. Honestly, 20 minutes a day, some light workout, you can mix it up, right? It's not going to take a rocket scientist to tell you if you have 3 donuts that's going to affect your weight, which then in turn, right, affects your mood, right? So it's cool too because we forget that food and exercise help our mental health. I got to say, while our world was struggling with mental health, and I totally understand it. It's a topic for another day. I knew that I was an extrovert and I was outgoing. I started doing yoga and now it's become part of my daily practice. And here's the thing, I'm a dancer. I grew up as a dancer and there are positions in yoga that I disagree with that I think are actually bad for your body. And I'm like, I don't even need to do that. Or if I can't do it, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to push myself to turn myself into the pretzel that I cannot put myself into. But I incorporate my dance stretches and things like that. And I love it. And I do it every day. And it helps me with my mental health. And I realized it was something, an outlet for me that just made me feel just so much better. So whether you like gardening or cooking or baking, you do you and find what makes you feel great. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. Are you confused about the housing market and the current state of the economy? It can be kind of confusing. Should I buy? Should I sell? Should I rent? Should I stay? Should I go? Well, most realtors are going to tell you it's a great time to do any of those things. But I'm going to give it to you straight. Rose the Realtor, here to the rescue. You got questions? I've got answers. No matter what your financial situation is, nobody likes to feel pressured. Honesty and finding out what works best for you is really the greatest approach. I work out of the Central Florida area, and I've lived here since I was 7 years old. So whether it be high traffic areas, schools, or flood zones, I know about it. So let's discover where you're at. And if it's not now, I'd love to work with you in the future. It's simple. Send an email to katierose@topagencyrealty.com, and we'll get a conversation started. I work behind the scenes while you take the stage. So just continuing on balance, right? So what the Federal Reserve is there to do is to give us just that, is to give us balance. So they dropped those interest rates for homes down to like 2.8% to, for loans to buy a home. And the whole purpose of this is, okay, we're in a pandemic. How are we going to stimulate our economy, right? Well, if you find out those interest rates are low, it's going to create purchasing power. So the interest rates have a direct effect on consumer behavior, right? It's basically mommy and daddy controlling us because they know better. So they're like, oh, we're going to put this, we're going to change these rates today. And here's the thing too, if you're a saver, it affects you in a bad way. So the way that the interest rates are low and it's great for people who want to take out a loan or, a mortgage on a home, it's great for them. But simultaneously, if you're a saver, your interest for your gains is also going to lower at the same time. So savers don't like it as much, but generally the general public is like, woohoo, take advantage of that moment. And then you're using that time to stimulate the economy. So if you've noticed, interest rates on homes are going up, right? So this is where that balance is going to come in. While there is an influx of people buying and purchasing homes right now, it's probably going to mellow out a little bit because now mommy and daddy are like, how much higher can we raise the interest rates to stop people from doing it? We're getting at a even playing field now. But you also don't want them to play with fire, right? We don't want them to say, okay, we're going to make the interest rate on a home 6%. If you are at that, You're now in a situation where normally, like me, if you get in when you're low, you get a fixed rate mortgage, right? But in that situation, if the rates are going up, you're probably going to want to arm. So you're going to want that adjustable rate mortgage so that when the economy fluctuates, your payments and your interest will also fluctuate with that mortgage, which is going to help you and save you in the long run. Same thing with credit cards. You're going to have either fixed or variable rates. Or existing homeowners can refinance and then free up that money to spend back into the economy, right? So it's all very, very calculated, especially even in the automobile industry, right? If you've got some freed up money from your refinance, then you can buy a car, right? The increased demand for all goods and services will boost employment across a variety of industries. So when you see things like gas prices going up, it's actually a mark of an economy growing. It's actually, oddly enough, a good thing. So gas going up is actually a good news because that means the economy is recovering. It's just taking some time to catch up. I mean, the Fed can be responsible for the value of a dollar, but oil is traded in dollars, and its price, therefore, rises when the value of the dollar falls. The Fed's not a perfect system. Their policies have been changed over time. It can be a double-edged sword at sometimes, but I mean, we forget that the whole point is for progress, right? Yes, the Fed has made some mistakes. They've made some new policies after 2008 to try to benefit our economy. But at the end of the day, we can't just point at Joe Biden. I mean, the Keystone XL pipeline, whatever, the Canadians were fine with it too. Okay. It was literally killing animals and land. And if you saw with your own eyeballs and didn't just hear, oh, he stopped the pipeline, you would see that this thing was more of a problem and a future problem. And it was not stable. And the reason for the gas prices is my whole point. It just has to do with regular economic changes. We've dealt with this before, people. This is not a new thing. But there are plans, and there actually was a production of, I believe, 11.6 million barrels per day, compared with an average of 11.3 million in 2020. And that is according to data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. But the whole thing is about sustainability, and that's what Biden is trying to do. He's trying to shift us away from fossil fuels towards electric vehicles. And, this might add uncertainty for oil and gas producers, but it doesn't matter. It's about moving forward, and trying to get away from what we have to continuously go through in case of this, in case of that. He is looking to drill in different areas, using U.S. resources. Like I said, we're just a little behind right now. We're constrained by, tight supplies and rigs and trucks and labor that they need to supply more oil. So we need to be patient and not just be jerks about it. You can tell the guy is not being a douche canoe, like he's doing his best and trying. I think it's a case of we live in a world where I want it and I want it now. And everything is so fast paced. We used to do projects in school and, or assignments at work, and they're like, due by the end of the week. And now it's like, give it to me overnight. I don't care. I know you have email. I know your phone is on, I mean, crops die. Sometimes there's a frost, there's a freeze. We have a tomato shortage because someone's trying to protect us. God forbid we don't have our eggs for a day because they're trying to save us from bird flu. We forget that we have these conveniences and that we can just go to the store and we don't have to wait months for, have you guys started a garden? I know lots of people started gardening during the pandemic. And I think it's super cool that I can have tomatoes, but real hard to maintain, takes forever to grow, bugs can get to them. The only thing that really grows well is basil, oregano, and basically your toppings, your herbs, so green onion grows real great. Celery, sage grows pretty great. But there's a lot of things, especially in Florida, that do not grow that well. And like we get mad at our government because they're trying to protect us. And we're like, I need it now, daddy. And it's just like, okay, 'cause sometimes we have to like really pull back and realize we lived in a civilized country. We live in America, right? Supposedly, as we like to tout, the greatest country in the world. But I would like to keep our civilized and forward moving country going. And all I fear and see is people trying to hold us back from that forward movement. And the abuse of power. I mean, just like DeSantis is doing right now with Disney. And they already had this deal, 55 years ago that it was going to be its own municipal government. So it's literally just because DeSantis is like, oh, let me pull my power card. And I also love that other governors have gotten involved and they're just like, don't get involved in the affairs of other companies. And hey, why don't you bring Disney to my state? We'll take you. I mean, I love that there is, backing for Disney. And, Disney I think it's just personal for people. Disney has been such a huge part of everybody's lives growing up. And if he's going to be so hateful, then maybe Disney should, revoke him of, certain Disney privileges. I don't know. I don't know what they could do personally for him, but Disney's a pretty powerful company and they own lots of things. So they could definitely say, you're not allowed to come, into our facility anymore. You can't bring your family to Disney. You can't do this. I mean, if they wanted to, they could ban him from anything to do with Disney. So, if he's going to keep pushing, I'm sure Disney is going to fight for themselves and they're also going to push back because at the end of the day, this is child's play. Disney has always had a stance and they're not about to have some whiny Republican come in and push them out of everything that they've worked so hard for. In conclusion, while I can be open-minded to lots of viewpoints, we can't be so forceful in making these very specific, dehumanizing laws for people. You want to believe in what you believe in, go believe in it. But the second that you start controlling freedom of speech, which is what people were wishing, oh, why'd you pull Trump from Twitter and doing all of these things and whatever. And now you're trying to silence kids and teachers from speaking about something that is true to them. Okay. And like they said, this is going to possibly affect counseling in schools. And it can definitely affect mental health. We have to let people be who they're going to be. And, if you want to parent your kids one way, I mean, we all know, and this is also not new. As we grew up when we were kids, we knew that when we opened up that door and we let our kids go out into public schools and mingle with friends, we wished them the best, that they learn on their journey. There's only so much you can control about a human. You can be a parent, as long as you can, and you can offer advice, but that kids are going to rebel and retaliate, and they're going to eventually be their own human. So we can't control things. The second we start controlling, guess what that sounds like? Yeah, that sounds like dictatorship. That sounds like a totalitarianism or leftist, way left socialism approach. So this is becoming hypocritical and it's really going against democratic beliefs. It's going against Republican beliefs. And once you can open your eyes to it, dare I say woke to it, then you will see that really we need to allow people to be who they are. And there are people that are in positions of power that are abusing their power. So balance, everybody. At the end of the day, life always comes down to balance. So I wish you wonderful balance in your day today and all of your future days. And I will end with a quote. Balance is not something you find, it is something that you create. And that is Jana Kingsford who said that. And I truly believe that everything you need to self-manifest, just like I'm doing this podcast. It's not like I just rolled over and said, okay, I'm going to do this. And it's just going to happen on its own. It's not a meet cute. Life is not a meet cute. It's not a Hallmark movie. You got to create your own solutions and your own balance for your own life. And That is not easy. I'm not saying it's an easy task to do, but it is a conscious task, and it will create change and a better flow and better balance in your life. This has been Katie Rose, served straight up with a twist. Catch my follow-up Fridays on YouTube, where I respond to your YouTube comments on any thoughts or questions relating to each week's episode. It gives you a chance to have a more intimate conversation with me and opens up the door to new topics. Plus, you'll see yours truly mixing a new and delicious cocktail or enjoying a glass of vino each week as I tease the next episode. Find me at my YouTube channel, Katie Rose, straight up with a twist. And remember, if you're thinking it, I'm probably talking about it.